So I went to the Toni concert twice and loved it. So what's up, y'all? I am back with a video. It's been a while, but I wanted to talk about the Toni concert and sort of my thoughts on how it relates to Black music, Black history, and genealogy, right? So I am a 80s baby, 90s kid, you know. Toni was definitely part of my childhood music and just and please like Instant Vintage by Raphael Sadiq. I played like the hell out of that album. But you know, Toni definitely was like part of my childhood growing up. Obviously I wasn't like buying albums when I was 5 or 6 when they were like making albums, but um, their music means a lot to me. And I so I went to 2 shows. I went to see them in Boston. I drove to Boston and then I actually went to go see them in Oakland. And I'll share a little bit more about that. But while I was driving to Austin, while I was driving to Boston, I was able to play like a lot more of their music, and like I said, a lot of their albums. Some of their early albums they dropped when I was a kid, so I didn't really like know every single song. And then there were some songs I was like, oh shoot, like I forgot about that one. But something was just like, nah, I need to go to this show. Like I just knew it was gonna be a good show. You just know, because you just like good music is good music, you know what I mean? So I had an amazing time in Boston. And then I was like, I want some more. So I'd actually decided to go to the Oakland show. And part of it is because I've always been curious about Oakland. I think in the last couple of years, I have been curious about American cities and like visiting United States more. Um, and because it's a huge country and there's a lot to see here. And I think cities that have had like a Black Mecca, Black American Mecca, do like call to me. And Oakland used to be called like the Harlem of the West. And as a Harlem native, it really does kind of like, I was always curious, like, what's out in Oakland? So anyway, and they're from Oakland. So I was like, well, you know what? This would be a really like good excuse to go to Oakland. So, I don't have like anything stopping me right now. So a friend of mine who lives in LA drove up to Oakland. We went to the show together. I kind of got to see like some of the city and stuff like that. I didn't stay in Oakland very long. Um, Oakland is big, which I was like, my friend would be like, "Oh yeah, and that's Oakland over there, and like that's Oakland." I was like, "Oakland is big." Um, so yeah, so that was cool. Um, Great show. Oakland show was amazing. The theater, I think it's the Paramount Theater in Oakland, is like really beautiful. It's such a dope theater. It's like so vintagey, but like well preserved and taken care of. Really nice theater there. And, it's just been like, I've been just on a high ever since the show or shows. It was much needed. And I think that, it really does speak to kind of where we are musically. Now, first of all, I don't have any musical training, so I may not have the vocabulary to necessarily express certain things, but we know good music. And I don't want to be on the whole like, there's no good music out anymore, because that's not true. But at the same time, it's like they really are kind of a, they're such an example of like Black American, what makes Black American music so unique, right? And so impactful and so meaningful. Um, and I find that like listening to their songs or like interviews, particularly Raphael Sadiq, he's always like paying homage to his Southern like roots. and he acknowledges like the ways in which his Southern background, or like his family's like Southern roots, impact his music. Um, but he's still like an Oakland dude, you know what I mean? And I think that really speaks to me because, I have like grandparents from the South. And as someone who like, I feel like Harlem is home for me. I did live in Queens for a good bit. But Harlem is like, considered, that's what I consider like where I'm from. Um, Harlem has a lot of like Southern ways that were retained, if you will. Like you could just feel it in the air. I don't know. Like it's the type of place like, we had grits on the menu at the local restaurants, you know what I mean? That's not something you see everywhere. So it's always like refreshing to hear someone like, to hear like Raphael Sadiq, who is, not from the South, but lives in like a northern city, in this case, like the Northwest. I'm from the Northeast, who recognizes like, this music doesn't just come out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Like it has meaning, it has a cultural meaning to it, it has like a history to it. And I really feel like he, you know, just gives it that reverence, but also without trying to like, I guess, be something he's not. Like I said, he's still very like Oakland proud. So I just really kind of like resonate with that, and I relate with to that. Um, and I think as a band, it's just so refreshing to see this like raw talent, and skill and appreciation for soul music, and the funk, and the bluesiness to it. And I was telling somebody like, I feel like particularly in the Boston show, because I think the venue was a little smaller than Oakland, I felt like I was in a juke joint. Like I felt like, okay, this is the closest I have had to like what I imagine a juke joint is like. It just had that feeling, but also kind of like a club. So if you've ever seen the like Let's Get Down video, I kind of felt like I was in the Let's Get Down video, which is almost like a dream come true. Like it was just, it was a vibe, man. It was a vibe. And they're not they're not hard on the eyes. They're not hard on the eyes. So that helps too. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of come on here really quickly and just share my thoughts, because I felt like it just meant so much to me to see them and to hear the music and to like almost rediscover some things too about them. And it just was like, man, you realize like what you're missing in music today. There are a lot of artists out, some that come to mind like Ari Lennox, Lucky Day, Victoria Monet, who I feel like really are kind of continuing the legacy of like Black American music. But I do feel like there was a time when that was everywhere. Like it was definitely much more abundant than it is now. And I'm not saying there's not space for other music, obviously, like, but there's just been this, I don't know, like, I don't want to say a disrespect, but like a disregard, I feel like, for um for Black music, and this sort of like just microwave culture, that comes with it. It's the same kind of complaints that we hear all the time. So I don't want to like go down that path. But I think that I was thinking like, wow, he would make a really great guest on Finding Your Roots. I think Raphael Sadiq would make an amazing guest on Finding Your Roots. And it's like, now I'm like curious. I'm like, there's got to be a story there. Because there's just something about, and I've said this before too, I don't know like what generation he is. I think he might be Gen X. I think he and like his brothers might be Gen X. And I have said before in other conversations that I feel like, so in the genealogy space, when people ask us for like tips on how to get started with genealogy, typically we'll say like, you start with the oldest relative in your family, and that is true. You should. But I also have said that I think that Gen X really is an overlooked um, generation in terms of getting family history and family like stories, because they are like the bridge. You know, they grew up with like the boomers and silent generation. A lot of them either have memories of going to the South, or their family's state of origin. There are some Black Americans, who may have like deep roots in like you know, uh, the Northeast too. So not everybody has been in the South for very long, but for the most part, it's typically the South. So these are like the generation. This is the generation that remembers going to the South, or like they remember like stories from parents and grandparents who were in the South. And it's almost like they speak both languages. Like they speak the boomer silent generation language, and they speak like millennial language and Gen Z. Although Gen Z is its own thing, but you know what I'm saying. Like, so I feel like Gen X is really um, overlooked, and really a valuable part of piecing together family history and genealogy. So that was like my roundabout way of saying, connecting the two in the concert, and the band again, like just amazing concert. Uh, I'm looking forward to like any new shows they have in the future. It was dope. It was dope. I was able to take a picture with Dwayne Wiggins, so that was cool. And yeah, so I really am thankful that I had that opportunity to go, or opportunities to go. Um, and I don't know, man. You just had to be there. They had a no phone policy, so which I thought was actually like really great, because folks be on their phone and it's distracting, and lights, and then you not like with them, and they really like brought you like onto a journey with them. So shout out to them. Shout out to Gen X. Shout out to the Black American like migration story and patterns and cultural retention in music. Shout out to Black Northern cities, Oakland, Harlem, Detroit, Chicago, all that. Um, yeah, that's that. So thanks for listening to my roundabout discussion slash review slash thoughts and ramblings on the concert, history, genealogy, Gen X, and all that good stuff. All right, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.